channel. So today I'm going to be doing another part of the series about New Age deception, and today I'm going to be talking about the law of attraction. So the law of attraction is something that I used to use all of the time. It's not necessarily originally a New Age concept, but it's very wrapped up in what we would call New Age deception today. And I used to do a lot of this. I used to do water affirmations. I used to write things down, put water over it, a glass of water over it, rub my hands together, talk the words, drink the water, all this kind of stuff. And when you think about it, it is kind of like a ritual. But I didn't really realize what I was doing. Now, I come from a science background, so I was very interested in the science of all of this stuff. I would often study and look into it, but I didn't really see the deception, and I didn't look deep enough, which is probably, again, because I was deceived. And I want to go a little bit more into why I don't think the law of attraction is good, why I feel like it is demonic, and why I feel like we should not be using it. So if you are interested to hear more, keep listening. So what is the law of attraction? So the law of attraction is basically saying, obviously, what we put out, we will kind of get back. And like I said, you can do certain rituals and certain things to do that. Like some people will do repetitive writing. I've done that before to kind of manifest something that you want. I've done water affirmations for it as well. So it's kind of attracting what you put out and the universe and all this kind of stuff. But like I said before, when people often are saying the universe, they're missing out God. Obviously God created this earth, the universe, but they're missing out God when they're saying this. When I never ever mention God in any of this, I just would always talk about the universe is going to give me this, the universe is going to give me that. Totally took God out of the equation. So I think that is the first problem that I've realized, and one of the reasons why I've stopped doing this. So it often talks a lot about frequency and vibration. So obviously we know that there's certain frequencies, there's vibrations. We all learn that in physics and science. I've studied that a lot myself. Obviously a lot of that is factual, but it's when we start manipulating this for our own good that it becomes a problem. Now, I do believe in, obviously, we don't want to be thinking bad thoughts. I think, to me, that's something that's very separate. So obviously just, thinking in a more positive way, just because you don't want to have a negative mind and negative thoughts. I don't think there is anything wrong with that. Obviously, it does say in the Bible we need to watch our thoughts and watch our tongue, because we are going to be judged on that. So of course we need to be mindful of what we're saying for our own sake and for others, but not for the reasons that are being shown here. Now, one example I want to give for this, so say with the law of attraction, you want to attract something that you want. It could be a job that you want, it could be a material item, whatever that may be. The problem is with that is we're missing out God. So when we use these certain techniques, say for example, I was trying to use the law of attraction to get a job that I wanted, right? I actually don't know whether that's good for me or not, but if I'm using the law of attraction to get these type of things, then I don't know whether that's actually good for me. So for instance, if I'm using that and forcing that towards me, that is through my own initiation. Now, if for instance I'm praying for something and God doesn't give that to me, that may be because God knows, of course God knows, that may not be good for me. So for instance, I could manifest a job that later on down the line ended me up in massive trouble. I could end up getting hurt, injured, jail, anything could happen. But I've manifested that anyway, and I've not gone through God. Now, obviously God knows if something is not good for us, then he's not going to provide that. And by going through the law of attraction, we kind of miss that out. And again, under whose influence are we doing that? Because we're not talking about God in this equation a lot of the time. Another thing is, it's become very, very popular now. It's getting loads of views all over YouTube. There's people talking about it on all different podcasts. It's becoming quite mainstream in the way it's been portrayed everywhere now. I can't even talk about certain medical things on Instagram and I get blocked. How is this stuff being allowed to be put out so widely with no problems? But yet when we talk about other things, it's not received in the same way. So that was another thing that I had to really question. And like I said, I think if we're constantly attracting things to us, we don't actually know whether that's good for us or not. What we should be doing is praying on things rather than using the law of attraction to get these type of things. God guides our path. Now, we shouldn't be doing these things to initiate and force it. Now, I'm not saying that the law of attraction isn't real in terms of you certainly can use certain things to get things you want. The problem is that people aren't seeing that what they're using is the demonic world to get what they want, because Lucifer can give you worldly things. We know that when we look in the Bible with Jesus being tempted, you can have anything in this world. So that can be offered to you. So it's definitely real. But people aren't seeing the mechanism behind that. And again, like I said to people in another video, we really need to look at where these new age concepts come from. One thing we need to bear in mind is, and again, be very careful if you're ever going to read these type of things. I wouldn't really suggest it, but looking in the Book of Satan. So if we're going back to Anton LaVey, who created the Book of Satan, It talks a lot in this book about thought concentration practices. Now we need to bear in mind that these practices were taught in the occult. If they're taught in the occult and it's in the book of Satanism, then why are we doing that? That's something that I really had to ask myself, because thought concentration and all these thought practices, visualizations, and all these type of things to attract things is literally written within the book of Satan. It's taught in the occult. They use the word energy actually turns to spirit. The higher up in the occult you go, these things are taught in that. So if that's taught in the occult and we're against Satanism, why are we using that? Because we're literally using occult type practices. What they've done, particularly in the Western world, is renamed it and used the name law of attraction to make it seem all nice and new. It's the exact same practices that they teach in the occult. It's just renamed. So that's something we really, really need to bear in mind. There are many, many people, especially writing things about attract money, and it's always about materialistic stuff, usually. And I'm not saying everyone that uses it for that purpose. I'm also not saying a lot of people that use this know it's demonic or they're necessarily demonic themselves. But I'm just saying it's something we need to be aware of, because a lot of this stuff is taught in the occult. I'd really, really, really say to people, go and research Anton LaVey and some of the things that they're teaching in the occult. You will see it's exactly the same practices that we're using in New Age. And law of attraction comes underneath this. We need to stop missing God out of the equation, because that's exactly what they want us to do. Now, another thing that I wanted to talk about is a lot of the science behind it. Now, Einstein was definitely part of some type of occult. Again, I don't know the ins and outs of that, but talking about everything is energy, and a lot of what people are doing is they're actually misquoting Einstein. That happens quite a lot as well. And a lot of what they're doing is pseudoscience. Now, I got very, very wrapped up into the science. If anyone remembers by Dr. Moto, if I pronounced that right, with the water crystallization science, where they would take different water and they'd say different words over it, and it would crystallize into different shapes, whether it's a good and bad word. And they talk about how, you know, you can attract things with your words and all this kind of stuff. I didn't realize that science is fraud, and I'd really, really suggest people go and research into that. So Dr. Moto, I call him the water guy, he was doing the study. So they did do this study with co-workers, and it was actually in the journal Explore, the Journal of Science and Healing. Now, there's another doctor called Dr. Dean Radin, if I pronounced that correctly, and he's he's also involved in this study. But the funniest thing is, he is the same guy who was the co-editor of the journal, right? So bearing in mind, they're putting a study in a journal that they literally edited themselves. Now, if that isn't what you call biased science, I don't know what is, because we can't say that Western medicine is biased for doing the same thing, but yet we're not going to say it when it comes to this. This science is fraud, and the fact that they've actually co-edited the journal themselves just shows you how much fraud is really going on within this. If you really explore it, you'll see it's extremely criticized. So that's something that people really, really need to look into. The study was also very, very badly carried out, and I'm so disappointed that I missed this, considering I come from a science background. But this is how Luciferian deception works so well. The study was very badly carried out, and like I said, it's pseudoscience. And the fact that the guy actually edited the journal himself just showed you that there wasn't any backing for it. It was completely biased, and you really can't trust that science. Anybody who's a researcher, who's studied research, particularly in the science field, will know that any type of studies like that, you cannot trust them, because they're too biased. You'd need to have multiple studies to back that up from unbiased perspectives, because a lot of people will put their own views onto things, and that's exactly what's happened here. So the study was very bad. There was also a third study that actually showed again that it was complete rubbish as well. So that's something else to bear in mind. And also, he's not even a real doctor. I didn't even know that. So that's another thing. Research into the people that are doing these things, because he's not even a real doctor. So he's using that false pretense of being a doctor to also fool people into thinking the science is real when it is not. So that's something that we need to bear in mind. Another thing as well is, it wasn't proven that with this doctor, with the degrees, it was actually shown that the unis were from, the degrees that he had were fake degrees from university. So he was fraud in it. So that's another thing to bear in mind. So in whole, Dr. Moto is a complete fraud. Another thing that people often use to fool people is you will see the word quantum, right? Because it makes it sound very sciencey and very, very, very legit. We really need to bear in mind that they're using this word quantum to make what they're doing sound a lot more sciencey and a lot more like it's backed up by something that's really true. So we need to be very, very careful when we see that word, because it's also being very much misled, and a lot of it again is not proven. Another thing that we need to bear in mind is this concept is also actually promoted by lots of celebrities. Most of us know that a lot of these celebrities are Satanists or they are involved in some type of group. So the fact that they're also promoting this and they're going on a lot of wide platforms to spread that should also be something that we're very much being aware of. Another book that I got very wrapped up into was The Secret. Now, I'd honestly suggest people research into Rhonda Bynes. Not only was she actually seen as a witch, and she went on the Oprah show, so that kind of says it all, really. She also has Buddhist beliefs, so that's another thing to question. So again, this all goes back to the fact that we can reach this type of self-enlightenment without God and all this kind of stuff. So if those type of people are writing those type of books, you've already got to question what they're doing. So when we look into the history of the law of attraction, the first kind of intro we had from this was by a guy called William Walker Atkinson, and he actually spoke about the vibrational energy of the mind. Now, of course, you know, certain things have frequency, certain things have vibration, that's just science, but it's the fact that we're manipulating it and using it for things that becomes a problem. The Secret came out in around 2000, so that really propelled it into more of the mainstream, because that book went everywhere. There was a film, they were doing shows and events with it, so that went very, very mainstream. So we got to look into that. A lot of this stuff comes under pagan worship, and a lot of it again is very material stuff, which is very Luciferian, so it's something to look into. Now, this comes under the New Age, so a lot of this law of attraction, thought concentration stuff is taught in the occult. Like I've said before, in around 1877 there was a Russian occultist, I've spoken about it before, Helen Blavatsky. If I pronounced that correctly, and she was somebody else who really pushed the New Age, if not was kind of the founder of this stuff. Bearing in mind she's a Satanist, she had magazines under the name of Lucifer. If you research this woman, you will see straight away that she was dealing with some very dodgy stuff. This is the same woman that's spreading this law of attraction. So if people like that are kind of spreading this and putting this across, we need to again be very, very careful who we're following. So when they talk about thought concentration in the occult, it actually involves, this is how the occult describe it, it involves mastering your mind, emotions through visualization to perform more advanced rituals. It's they call it a thought form. This is the exact same thing as law of attraction, but relabeled as something different. So we really need to be careful of that. There was another thing as well that witches practice called sympathetic magic. Law attracts like concept. This is in the occult. See how similar that sounds to what we're doing with the law of attraction, but with a bit of glitter sprinkled on top to make it sound okay. So that's another thing. There's also another thing that I've looked into called the New Thought movement, and this was around 1,000 years ago. And something to bear in mind that was written in the Bible under Matthew was old wine and new bottles. So what this basically means is there's a lot of old rituals they're putting into new things, and they're making it sound good by dressing it up. But these are the same old rituals they were using in the occult back in the day. So again, they're dressing it up as something new to get people to buy into it, and it has worked very well. So it's a very smart idea. Another thing that we need to look into is that, I don't know how to pronounce this, but Kybalion book that was around in 1908. So that kind of explains a lot of this stuff as well, and you can see the link between that and the occult. What with the law of attraction that we've got today is a mix of different occult practices sprinkled with a little bit of modernization on it, just to make people buy into it and make it sound like it's something kind of cool, and not something that's necessarily bad. A lot of what we're doing today, like I said, comes from the occult, and if you read a lot of articles about this, you will see the connection between that. With the law of attraction, it is leaving out God. What we should be doing is praying on things, praying to God, rather than trying to self-initiate things and leaving God out, because one, we don't know whether that's going to bring us something good or bad, and two, because a lot of people say to me, oh, I've done this stuff but nothing bad happened, it all seemed good. So that's how they buy you into it. They're not going to come at you with bad things straight away. They usually come at you with good things, making it sound like it's something good, because it will give you worldly possessions. It definitely will. So it makes it seem like it's a good thing, but what you don't know is the price you're paying for that is going to be a lot higher than what you get. And the deeper you go in, the more and more bad things you start to see, or certain things could start happening in people's life and they don't actually attribute it to what they're doing, because they don't put two and two together. Like I said, if we're attracting things that we don't know is actually good for us or not by these ritual type practices, we don't know what that's going to bring us down the line. Like I said, if I attracted a job that I didn't really know because it wasn't through God, I hadn't prayed to God on it whether it was right for me or not, then how do I know something bad's not going to happen to me, or that job might lead me to something bad? I don't know that, because I've missed out God and I've not got God's approval on it. And that's something that I've realized. Like I said, I was heavy into the law of attraction. I've had a whole book like this full of manifestations, full of repeated writing, where I keep writing things. Again, we're literally doing minor rituals, and this is what I didn't realize. I used to do the water ones all the time. So again, I'm not coming after people personally, I'm coming after the concept, and I just want to make sure that people don't fall for the same traps that I do. Like I said, people really need to look into the Russian occultist Helena, look into what she was doing, Helena Blavatsky, look into her work, because you will see in her writing that the law of attraction is written there, but in a very slightly different way. Because like I said, of course frequencies are real, of course that comes under natural science, but we need to be sure we're not using these things to manipulate and get things within our life, because that's when it starts to become demonic. So that's something I really wanted people to look into, and the fact that a lot of this science is fraud is very much deceiving people, because that's what exactly got me deceived. I was like, oh, there's science behind it, so it has to be real. And don't get me wrong, these things can be real through the demonic world, but it's the science is making you think it's something it's not telling you where it's coming from. The more and more you study what the occult do and look into what Anton LaVey was doing, and like I said, if he's telling you to New Agers he wants his religion back, why would we then want to practice what they practice? If he's out there literally quoting that the Satanists want their New Age religion back, we must know that we're doing the same things that they're doing, but in a different way. So I really want people to have a think on that. Please do further research. Like I said, it's never good to just believe what someone's saying. It's really good to start researching these people. I'm going to put some links below in this video so that you can read some articles on it. There's also some videos and quotes. I'm also going to add some into this video so you can see what they were talking about. A lot of what's in their New Age concept is coming from the occult. So hopefully that gives people a little bit more of an insight into this, and shows people a little bit more about where it comes from. So something I just wanted to add in that I'd written some more notes about in terms of the law of attraction. Like I said, it was really Helena that brought this over, and that was actually done in Isis Unveiled, which was, like I said, published in 1877. By the end of the century, New Thought authors such as Ralph Waldo Trine, William Walter Atkinson, who I've spoke about before, very much popularized her occult concept. So we have to know where these things are actually coming from. And that book I spoke about, which I can't pronounce, Kabbalion, was actually called Mentalism. But we have to realize that a lot of this stuff can't be easily understood by anybody. Like, you'd have to study the occult for years, and I'm assuming only very high up people have a real understanding of this. But the fact that it even comes from the occult already showed us that we really shouldn't be messing with this kind of stuff. We've also found today that a lot of bits of these law, now I'm not saying all of it, but little bits of this law is actually now found in things like neuro-linguistic training. It's found in CBT. So you do have to be a little bit careful in what you're getting involved in. I don't tend to seek these things for help. I go to God, because obviously he's our creator, so what better thing to go to than God? But a lot of this stuff is now getting mixed up in modern day science, and obviously we know a lot of the people who are running the Western medical industry are occultists anyway, so it's something we really need to be careful of, because they are slowly creeping this in. Now if they creep it in too much, people are gonna probably throw their hands up and go, whoa, what's this? So the way they do it is by drips, and it's very clever, and it gets mixed up with a lot of modern science and a lot of truth, so it's harder to see. So we have to remember the law of attraction in the 19th century was called the New Thought movement, and this actually later developed into New Age mysticism. So although a lot of people say, oh, a lot of this stuff was done before, just because something's old doesn't make it good. And like I said, they're rebranding things from the past to get people involved in it today. A lot of this knowledge is what I would call occult science.